I think it was in the article I wrote about the Tor project. It was actually called, I think, Deciphering the Tor project a couple of years ago. I talked about the way that technology filters from government into public use.
Yeah, that's a huge topic.
And that's what we're seeing here. So these references to the various products, these are corporate products. So actually, I should probably find it because I think this might be interesting to recall. Because it's very much what a description of what or why this document exists.
Yeah, it gives context to what we're seeing.
I said that the general public is at the bottom of the access spectrum where technology is concerned. Here we go. Serving the general public is barely on the radar. They are at the bottom end of the access spectrum where technology is concerned. First comes the military, then the military-industrial complex. These days, it is easier to think of them as the military-commercial complex, thanks to the wonders of privatization of functions that were traditionally performed within the realm of government. Then comes commercial, then comes the American public and select others, and then follows the rest of the world, the rest of the first world countries, in the order in which they are favored by the Americans, and then follows the rest of the world. And in Russia, you see this, you see it all around you. The access to technology is predicated upon the favored status you hold with the Americans. So if you do not hold a favored status with the Americans, the technology that is available to you is vastly more primitive. So a part of being, you know, in the Five Eyes or whatever, selling your country to the empire, is that a part of what you receive in return is access to technology.
That's really interesting.
Which means that you are able to participate and further develop based on that technology, develop your society at a faster rate. It's not how things should work, but it's how they do work. So when I'm talking about the military commercial complex,
yeah,
I'm talking about how military tools make it into the corporate sector long before they make it into the public sector. So again, the corporates have greater access. And okay, here, let me give you an example that probably makes sense to people. You go to your CEO's house for a Christmas party or whatever. If you're lucky enough to go to your CEO's house, what do you see? You see the home-based technologies in their mega mansion that are not available to general consumers in the public.
Yeah.
You go into the corporate spaces and you see both hardware and software solutions that are beyond the imaginable reach of your average public consumer. So some of these Nest products and these, well, I want to call them like home surveillance systems, because they basically are, it's like basically surveilling you in your home. But some of these amazing things that they're telling us that they can do, you can do this, you can do that, you can do the other thing, you can answer the front door from your mobile phone, you can whatever else. These are things that you would have seen in the CEO's home for the last 8 years or 10 years.
Definitely.
These are technologies that you would have seen in use in the corporates for a full decade. So this is how, and this is part, it also answers some of, we've talked previously about how innovators become targets if they aren't prepared to sell the technology and sell the discoveries to the military industrial complex, if they will not sell their technologies to the agencies, if they will not abdicate, you know, from the control of new emergent technologies, then they are targeted. And the reason for this is because the military holds an R&D, why R&D and science and scientists and researchers, why universities and academics are all beholden to the intelligence communities, the intelligence agencies, is because they consider that they have ownership of the intellectual product of their society, that they have a natural right to own and control.
Yeah.
That intellectual product.
It's almost like it's a technological censorship. It's another variety of censorship from how I'm hearing, how I'm understanding what you're saying.
Yeah, and then once they have that control, then they are in charge of how that technology, how the implementation and the use of that technology filters back down through their favored pancake of who's allowed to have it.
That is the exact same process you see with the media as well. Like, it's the same control filtering, you know, the favorite outlet gets the scoop, or the, you know, when with WikiLeaks showing the DNC emails where the politicians are working with the favored reporter to craft a narrative, it just mirrors that to me. So
yeah, so they're able to control when the technology is like blossoms, like reaches its full potential, and then when it is released and to whom it is released and to whom have access to it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that is firstly the military use, because they will turn every technology into, I think I told you about this, and people who are working on software like voice interpretation, text to speech to text stuff. This is like
absolutely.
This is like 15 years ago. 15 years ago, there's people, and they're on this like totally benign project. They're like, you know, this is going to mean that like blind people are going to be like better for, you know, and it's all like to help people to overcome disabilities and blah 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 blah. And then the actual interpretations, the actual forms of use, it turns out are military and not civilian. And the civilian uses are like the last priority. They're right down the bottom of the chain. So from the intelligence agency's perspective, the control of technology is A, how can we use this ourselves for military gain and military purposes? B, how can we commercialize it and make money out of it?
Absolutely.
And then C, who amongst our allies will we allow to have access to it or to benefit from it? And then like D, E, F, G, H, somewhere down there is, okay, now we'll let everyone in the public have access to it.
Yeah, so Wi-Fi would be one of those things, and there'd be a whole lot of other examples as well. So.
Right, so what made me think of it is that I'll screen share and go back to the document. I can get rid of this now. Where they're talking about, somewhere in here, they actually listed the solutions, products such as Heirarchy. So Heirarchy, I mean, I'm aware of multiple open air wireless hub solutions for corporates. I've seen them used in businesses before, years and years back. Heirarchy is an example of what would have been available in the commercial sphere to corporates at substantial prices back then. But when I say to corporates, it will be to Western corporates. It will be to corporates in the Western world.
Yeah, it actually surprises me that the US would allow, like you were talking about how Russia is only, lets people have, or technology in Russia is more available to people that are friendly with Americans. I'm almost surprised that they haven't tried to cut that off completely with the anti-Russian hysteria that's going on right now. But
well, it's just that you see products in use that are 20 years old.
Okay, yeah.
Or that are 30 years old. And that's not to say that Russians don't have their own high technology, which they do, because in Russia, they tend to get around that by developing their own stuff, which is entirely logical, an entirely logical response. But the Western products that you do see are very aged. They tend to be very, very aged. probably like Yeltsin times. I don't know. Like,
yeah, well, no, that makes sense to me. I was just kind of wondering,
yeah,
based on the insanity of the current climate, but that makes sense.